Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. It's not every day you get to park a 911 Sport Classic on your driveway. Today is a proper pinch me moment, because I think that is my favourite of all modern day 911s. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. But it's beautiful, isn't it? It's a big statement, right? My favourite of all modern day 911s. I've been very lucky. I've driven quite a lot of them. 991.2 generation. I guess my two standouts, I drove the GT2 RS and the Turbo S, both brilliant cars. And then 992 generation, I've been very lucky. I've driven all the way from the very base model. I've driven the GTS, the 4S cab, and then I guess the two top of the tree cars, the GT3 and the GT3 Touring, and they are all magnificent. I want to get my hands on a GT3 RS, but I'm working on that with the guys at Porsche GB. But this Sport Classic, my litmus test, I put some pictures of this when I arrived at home on Instagram, and I don't think there's a negative comment in there. Overwhelmingly, people are stunning car, amazing spec, beautiful, best 911. There's just something about it. It oozes class, this car, and I'm very lucky to have it for just 2 days. Unfortunately, the weather is shocking, and yesterday it was raining pretty much the whole day, so I've got a very small weather window to tell you more about this stunning, stunning car. I'm going to try some slightly different angles to my normal videos in this film because there's so many beautiful, beautiful things about this car. First up, this particular car is in what's called Sport Grey Metallic. The decals on the door, love the big roundel. There is an optional number you can have on there. I'm not a big fan, if I'm honest. I like this a little bit more under the radar, but they're available in other colours as well. I've seen blue ones and green ones, but I do like this colour. It's very, very subtle. But it's got lots of really nice little touches. These gold badges, and apparently that is proper real gold plating. And then the standout feature for me are these Fuchs design wheels with the center locks. It just makes the car look lovely. Now, shall we get the bad news out the way? First up, they only made 1,250 of these. They retailed at £217,000. And at that time, that was the most expensive 911 you could buy. Bad news is, I went on Auto Trader this morning, and as of today, there are only 2 for sale, admittedly both of them pretty much with delivery miles. One is going for £370,000 and the other one £375,000, and there's an offer on one of those, by the way, so that's not just speculative, that's pretty much going for over 370 grand. Wow. So I think the question as to whether the Sport Classic will become a classic, I think we've answered that one. Yes, they're quite expensive. Now the subtle graphics continue on the front and going up the centre of the car with these stripes, but there's a double bubble on the roof, which just, it's so subtle you might almost miss it, but it just harks back to 911s of old. And I just think it looks fantastic. Now, if I just pop the bonnet, it just looks like a standard 911 bonnet, but then you lift it up and you can tell instantly if you're a 911 or a Boxster owner. Just this lip here, you lift it up and that is carbon fibre. It's got this beautiful matte carbon fibre. You would end up being a carbon fibre bore. You'd park this car up and you go, come here, look, carbon fibre. I think I might have said this on 911 videos before. I love the style and shape of a 911, but I always think it feels a little bit lost without some kind of spoiler or wing on the back. That's why I love the 992 GT3 so much. But this ducktail harks back, it's a nod to the 2.7 RS. I remember when I had my neighbour's Rennsport and that had the little ducktail on the back, and I just think it looks so right. And that's the standout feature at the back of this car. It just ties in with that classic 911 heritage look. It looks so good. And from what I understand, it's pretty effective as well. So that is definitely standout feature at the back aesthetically. And then I also love the gold badging at the back there. It might be a bit bling for some of you, but it just ties in so well. There are only a few gold badges. There's the Sport Classic badge at the back, there's the one on the wing, and then there's a beautiful one on the dash, but we'll have a look at that in a moment. There's also a Porsche Heritage badge just there, which I like very much. But what's in here? What's in the back of this car? Well, you might think of this a bit like a GT2 Touring, because in the back of this is the engine from the 992 Turbo. So it's a 3.7 flat 6 twin turbo. It's been detuned a little bit, so it's running at 550 PS, and then that's just coupled through the rear wheels, so rear wheel drive only. And then the really cool thing about this is it's also coupled to a manual gearbox, a 7-speed manual gearbox, although we do have to talk about that when we're out driving. So yes, 911 turbo, rear wheel drive, manual gearbox, classic shape, no big wing. I mean, what's not to like? But if you think the outside is spectacular, just you wait until you see the interior, because the interior spec of this car is mwah. Oh. Good morning, sir. Would you like some heritage with your 911? Oh, yes, please. Ta-da! This is it. I mean, this is about as heritage as it gets. This interior is up there with the nicest interiors of any car I have sat in. It is beautiful. Clearly the standout feature are these beautiful seats with tan leather and houndstooth inserts. They are stunning. And this interior is very much focused around comfort and lavish luxury, not stripped out, lightweight, carbon bucket seats, roll cage, harnesses, not of that track focused Porsche stuff, which I like as well. This is very much the kind of GT, long, cruisy type drive, arrive in style in your tux at the, the casino in Monaco, something like that. It's beautiful in here. When you sit in the car, I mean, the standout feature of the seats and the houndstooth, but the other thing I just think makes it so classy in here is the dash here, and the center console here has a wood trim, and it is beautiful. You very rarely see wood in modern day cars. We're all obsessed with, piano black and carbon fiber and brushed aluminium. But when you get in a car that has wood, instantly it has a heritage feel, because it's how we used to do lovely car interiors. There's that beautiful gold 911 Sport Classic badge, by the way, just there. It's a thing of beauty, this interior. Now, the other thing, when you sit here, you look out over the steering wheel and you look at the instrument binnacle, and the dials have green digits on them. The same thing for the Sport Chrono dial there, and that's just a really nice, classy touch. You've got all the modern day Porsche PCM system with Apple CarPlay and all the things you want. I'm not going to talk about any of that in this video, because for me it's irrelevant in this video. It's just modern day Porsche. It works brilliantly and I like it a lot. Now, I also told a little porky, when I said at the beginning these were £217,000, they actually started from £214,000, but the car I'm sat in was £217,000. It only has a few options, but the big ticket item option in this car is the Burminster Hi-Fi, which is over £2,000 as an option. And you get these beautiful speaker grills, and the sound quality is, as you would imagine, amazing. But that's the only options this car's got fitted, really. What I want to talk about is what this car is like to drive, because on paper you'd look 911 turbo engine, rear wheel drive, manual gearbox, in wet weather's gonna be a bit hairy and a bit scary and a bit intimidating. And driving the car back from Reading yesterday, this car is none of those things. It's ballistically quick, but actually it's got quite a relaxed feel to it. So let's take it for a drive, and I'll talk to you more about the driving characteristics of the car. And I really want to have a conversation about this manual gearbox, because it is beautiful and it's lovely to swap cogs for yourself. But with it being 7-speed, there are some things that you need to be aware of with this gearbox. It doesn't detract from it being a great gearbox, but you just need to be aware of them. But all in all, interior-wise, oh man, it's a 10 from Len. Unreal. Now let me start the driving part off by talking about drive modes. I've been using sport mode. It has normal sport, sport plus. It has a wet mode. Hopefully we won't need that. And it has an individual mode. I like Sport Plus mode. It opens up the valves in the exhaust. It makes it just a little bit louder. It's not a loud, bangy, shouty car, this, but there are some subtle pops and bangs on overrun that you get from the back, and on throttle you have a really nice tone. Sport Plus mode will just make the throttle mapping more aggressive and a little bit more shouty. I haven't felt the need to go into that mode yet, even though I drive my Boxster in Sport Plus mode or an individual mode with Sport Plus set pretty much all the time. That's set up to be nice and comfort and luxurious and almost a Grand Tourer type style car, you'd think you'd put a PDK in there because that would be nice and relaxing rather than a manual. However, it's a sport classic. It harks back to the classic original 911s, and therefore me had to have a manual gearbox. And I love the manual gearbox. My question is about the 7 speeds. I just want to explain. So if you think about a standard H pattern gearbox, I'm going to call it 3 planes in a standard box. You got first, second would be plane 1, third, fourth, plane 2, fifth, sixth, plane 3, and in this car you've got a 4th plane, which is 7th. Now in a normal 3-plane gearbox, I've made up the name plane, by the way, I don't know what the technical term is, but in a normal 3-plane gearbox, the gearbox is sprung to the center plane. So if you're in first or second and go up into neutral and let go of the gear stick, it will knock into the middle plane. This gearbox is sprung quite heavily to the second plane as well, which is fine if you're in plane 1 or plane 3. It's when you go over into 7. And one of the things I've noticed, and not that you use 5th, 6th and 7th very much at all, I'm in 6th at the moment as it happens, but if I were to go and change from 6th to, I've just done it there, from 6th to 5th without holding the gearbox, it springs back into 3rd, and if you're on it and you're going down into a corner from 6th, you want to go into 5th, and you're not really positive with that gear change, you'll miss shift and you'll go from 6th to 3rd. Likewise, you can't go into 7th gear from anything other than 6th gear. So if I go up into 7th gear now, I'm in 7th gear. Again, if I come down and I don't hold the gear stick, well, I do it that way so the camera can see, it drops into the into that second plane, and you go from 7th to 4th. So you just, when you're up in those higher planes, 5th to 6th, so if I came down, imagine I came down from 5th, nice positive into 6th into 5th, that's fine. If you're not positive, it wants you to get over into 3rd and 4th. Now, as it happens, that's not generally a problem on a B road like this, because you're normally only in 3rd and 4th anyway. This car has so much power and so much torque, you don't really need to be going. I mean, I'm doing 60 miles an hour in 4th gear, and I'm pulling less than 3,000 RPM. So, you know, your 6th gear and your 7th gear are really very much cruising. I mean, I'm in 7th now, doing 50 miles an hour, and I'm doing 1,200 RPM. Nuts. About going up into Sport Plus mode is it turns on the PDCC, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, I think that's what it is. Firms up the dampers just too much, so I'm in sport mode. Let's just push on down a nice bit of tight and twisty. Now, first things first, front end of the car isn't nearly as sharp as something like a GT3 because it doesn't have the same front end geometry. It's just set up a little bit softer, it's a more relaxed feel, it's got a lovely steering feel, it's a 911, but it's just not as sharp and as I'm a race car as something like a GT3 or GT3 Touring. It's got the auto blip on the downshift, and then you just have this epic power plant behind you. It's got so much power that you're not really going to tap into on the public road, but it comes in quite smoothly in a linear way. It's not something that's, you know, nothing, everything. And even though the road surface today is pretty damp and greasy, I've got confidence. I feel like I can push the car reasonably hard. It's funny, I thought, you know, when I drove the GT3 on the road, I thought, oh, this is a great car. And then a few weeks ago, I went round the Nürburgring as a passenger in a 992 GT3 with a guy that's done the N24 5 times. Gareth, if you're listening, you're a legend. And I suddenly realised that actually that car is so much more capable than you need on the public road. A little bit of tree litter on the road here, some nasty potholes. Suspension deals with that really nicely. Very slippy surface. Now I'm only at probably half throttle there, but there's so much power, it just drags you up the road. It's a fantastic powertrain, this. But I think the spirit of this car is probably driving a road like this at maybe 7 or 8 tenths, not 10 tenths. Not even taking it to a track. It's having a nice spirited drive. Sadly, I don't have any Alpine passes to hand today, so I'm having to make do with this. But it's got that engagement. I'm only really using 3rd and 4th. Tight bends I might go down to 2nd, but there's so much torque in this engine that you don't really need to go into that. Let's hope I get a nice clear run down here. Am I going to get a nice clear run? I could be lucky. I'm in 2nd still. Out pigeon. You hear this whoosh of the turbos. It's got quite a nice engine noise. It's not too loud, but you get that lovely whoosh and induction noise as you squeeze the throttle out of a corner and the car just sits down, and even though it's only rear wheel drive, takes all the power and then just propels you up the road. What a thing. What a magnificent thing. You can just hear the exhaust popping a little bit there on overrun. Oh, it's delicious. It's as good as 911s get for me, this. I should be for 370 grand, I guess. Just got this relaxed nature to it. You don't have to be driving it fast. It's just engaging on every single level. From an aesthetic level, as you walk up to the car, it's beautiful. There's no doubting the classic 911 shapes. In this particular spec, it just stands out. I love the Fuchs alloys. It just sets the car off. It's the kind of car that you would get out of and walk away and always look back and go, oh yeah. And then you get in the car. This interior, I mean, come on people, this interior is spectacular. It is a stunning place in here. So you get that sensory overload, the smell of the leather and the visuals, the wood on the dash, the houndstooth seats. And then you start the engine, then you start to drive. And for me, my reviews are as much about trying to give you a feeling of what it's like to drive these cars. I am immensely lucky to get to drive the cars I get to drive, and to drive this particularly. And many of you won't have that opportunity. You might not even get to see one, let alone sit in one, let alone drive one. And I want to try and convey to you the feelings and emotions that a car like this can stir in you. And that for me is the essence of what a 911 is. Until you drive one, I don't think you get how special 911s are. I've got a Boxster and I love my Boxster to bits, and I'll probably keep that car for a long time. But there's always a part of me wants a 911. I know, unless I win the lottery, I'm never going to get one of these, ever. But there's just something about a 911, and what I love about this car is this car embodies all of the great things about a modern day 911. They are so usable, so drivable. Yet it also incorporates all the things, the heritage that we love about them from the past. And that makes this car really special. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about the 911 Sport Classic. But I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. But I've managed to get this film done before the rain comes in. I didn't think that was going to happen this morning. I thought I was doomed. As we come into this corner, just down into 3rd, down into 2nd, nose in, and then